Please go ahead, sir. We are live now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So a very good afternoon to everyone. I have great pleasure in extending a very warm welcome to our chief guest, Sri Sanjay Jaju, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Defense. He will be joining very shortly in another meeting, but he has asked us to continue the session. And I also welcome our special guest, Mr. Muhammad Noor Rahman Sheikh, Joint Secretary, Economic Diplomacy, Ministry of External Affairs, and Air Vice Marshal P.S. Sareen, Assistant Chief of the Staff Maintenance Plans, Indian Air Force. I also warmly welcome all the eminent speakers and participants to this webinar and pre-DEF Expo webinar on synergy of policies of Government of India for ease of doing business. We have many experts on the subject to give their valuable inputs on every aspect of today's important topic. Before we proceed to the formal discussion, I'll request ASSOCHAM IT team to please play the video of DEF Expo. Thank you, IT team ASSOCHAM. May I now request Colonel K.B. Kuber, an esteemed member of ASSOCHAM's Defense Council, Indian Army veteran and Director, Airspace and Defense, EY, to kindly moderate the session.
Thank you, Mr. Rajora, and for that excellent video from the MOD on promoting the DIF Expo. I think it motivates all of us to actually pick up a flight and reach there. So that's very good. And today we are discussing one of the most important subjects ever in defense procurement. That is the synergy of policies. So has any one of us read the DAP? And anybody who can go beyond the second or the third page and still not sleep, I think he would have done a very great job. And we are talking about 600 odd pages. And then there is a DPP, various versions of DPP. Then within the DAP, you've got some offset policy, offset guidelines, and then we have DPM, then you have foreign military sales, then you have G2G arrangements, and then we have industrial licensing, and we have companies laws, companies act, and how do you define an Indian company? How do you know what is an Indian company? I mean, there is fundamental doubts are there with people at all the time. And then you have some arms license, something has to go to MHA, something you have to go to a DPITT, and then for export something has to go to DGFT, and then there are some export licenses approvals from the MOD, and then there is a SCOMET, and then there is some countries are negative, some products are negative, some. So I do not know, there is so much of it over there, and I think this panel of experts today is going to discuss all of this. And then I read a very interesting mention in the DAP itself. Besides the extent policies of the government of India, the vendor or the vendor or IOP or whoever will also be compliant with the regulations laid down by the Companies Act. Now, when we think of all this, there is automatically a confusion that comes. Key, is it possible to put everything in one place, or do we want to leave it as vague as it can, so that consultants like me can have a ball? So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have about 8 or 9 speakers in about 40 minutes. So we have more than about 3 to 4 minutes per speaker. And I would like to request all of you to kindly think of this particular time constraint that we have because of the number of speakers, and therefore try to keep yourselves to that 3 or 4 minutes so that we have some time to even discuss certain important issues that arise. So without wasting any more time, I think I would like to invite the chairman of the ASSOCHAM National Council on Aerospace and Defense, and also the president and head of South Asia region Airbus, Remy Millard. Remy Millard for the theme address. All yours.
Well, thank you very much. Dignitaries, my industry colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all. I think we meet at a very opportune moment, just 2 days after the national budget that has reaffirmed the government's commitment to the Atmanirbhar Bharat policy in all sectors, including defense. The budget has earmarked 68% of the defense capital budget for domestic companies, as well as 25% of the defense R&D budget for private industry startups and academia. It is therefore a good time to ask if the Indian private sector is ready to take advantage of such proactive enabling measures. The government is offering support to create opportunities for domestic industry in the defense sector. However, so far, DPSUs have shouldered the burden of leading this charge, leaving the private sector to play a limited supporting role. To benefit truly from the government's Atmanirbhar Bharat policy, the private sector must raise its ambition more than before. The Indian private sector today needs the right partnerships with DPSUs, with foreign manufacturers as well, to rise up the value chain and become large-scale system integrators and complex platform manufacturers. In fact, the government's Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign correctly visualized a prominent place for the Indian private industry when it introduced the strategic partnership model in Chapter 7 of the DPP 2016. The SP model represents a rare and long-awaiting opportunity for the private sector to make a breakthrough and establish a sound defense industrial base. However, we have observed in recent media reports that this most unique and critical objective of the SP model, that an applicant company should be a private sector company, might be under review. We believe that any dilution of this enabling provision will only serve to undermine the government's own fair intentions and perpetuate an unlevel playing field against the Indian private sector, which is an equal partner in contributing towards building an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Because of its uniqueness and criticality for the Indian private defense industry, the global investor community is closely following the SP model for any signs of policy instability and uncertainty of regulations. Again, in recent months, we have read in the media about the cancellation of various ongoing tenders within the frame of the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Why it's indeed the prerogative of the customer to do so, such cancellation midway through the process not only costs time and resources for the participating companies, it can also lead to wrong perception about the government's commitment towards its own policy and regulations. I would also like to draw your attention to another enabling and encouraging policy announced by the government, but one that seems to be languishing now, the leasing option in defense procurement. Leasing is a practical, it's a realistic means for the armed forces to meet their operational needs. Leasing has many advantages. Equipment can be made available quickly, deployed faster. Financial outgo is considerably low and no long-term investment is required to create support infrastructure. Leasing is complementary to the capital procurement process, yet progress on leasing is slow and the industry is still waiting to see the first contracts under this policy. And my final point is on achieving operational excellence in execution of the tenders to avoid protracted timelines. The Indian defense acquisition process can benefit from speed of doing business. Capital acquisition takes an average of more than 5 years, resulting in technology obsolescence and non-delivery of equipment to the end customer in a timely manner. Protracted timelines also delay the much required maturing of the Indian industrial ecosystem towards achieving Atmanirbhar Bharat. Well, dear colleagues, very often the best of intentions can fail on the touchstone of perception. And investor perception is built around factors such as policy stability, regulatory certainty, and respect for deadlines. And coming back to the private sector, to the Indian private sector, I believe we are as much a stakeholder in national security as the public sector. And our role in no manner diminishes the role of the latter. Yet the private sector is nowhere near the DPSUs when it comes to procuring large contracts, partly because of its own capability and capacity constraints. But I'm confident that the government will find the right balance between the public and private sectors when it comes to the holistic development of the domestic defense industry. So let me again welcome all dignitaries to this very important seminar. And I hope today we will deliberate together on concrete actions to further develop our defense industry. So thank you very much, and over to you.
So thank you, Remy, for those the lovely comments. So what we'll do is we'll call you again once we have all the speakers, just to summarize from the chairman's point of view. From the chairman, as the chairman Defense Council, you can summarize and welcome Mr. Judges. So if you can hold on, we'll call you back again. So to hear as to what an electronics major of the world would probably tell us, I think it's time for me to call my dear friend Ashish Saraf, the Vice President and the Country Director, India, Thales. Yeah, Ashish, all yours.
Thank you, sir. Respected Shri Sanjay Jajuji, ASDP, Shri Mohammad Noor Rahman Sheikh, JSMEA, my colleagues from the industry, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, ASSOCHAM, for inviting Thales to share our comments. Also, congratulations for maintaining the Defense Expo dates, and we hear that now it's going on as per schedule. That's going to be clearly momentous from the standpoint of making a strong statement that India is coming back to business and hosting large-scale events like the Def Expo. So we are very excited about that. Also, congratulations to Government of India for the recently announced budget. It clearly exemplifies the fact that there is a focus on Atmanirbhar Bharat, the allocation of 68% of defense procurement for domestic equipment and industry is a huge positive step towards Atmanirbhar. Moreover, efforts to foster innovation by earmarking 25% of defense R&D budget to private firms, startups, and academia bode well for all stakeholders and will allow OEMs like us to bring more technology into India. So we are very excited about that. Since we have limited time, I will very quickly say that Thales has been in country serving the country's self-reliance goal since several decades now. We work hand in hand with our forces at many locations and the forces like Air Force, Army, and Navy supporting our men in uniform shoulder to shoulder at various points to ensure that the reliability of equipment is flawless and the availability is fully there for them at any given point of time. Thales is also proud to be associated with strong engineering presence in India, including research and development, both on open hardware, defense, test beds, and many other relevant applications that directly impact the industry in terms of evolution of technology, as well as we do work in areas like cybersecurity right here in India, develop applications for encryption, develop applications for data analytics, and so on for civil applications right here in India for India and right here in India for the world. So we are extremely proud to be associated with that, including our two joint ventures, one of which is actually a registered MSME that contributes towards manufacturing of the TR modules, as well as electronic warfare suite for the Rafale and the AESA radar. Again, that goes on the Rafale for India and that goes on the Rafale for the world. The topic synergy of policies is extremely important. I think the policy and specifically defense procurement policy is ever evolving. As Colonel Kubed has rightly mentioned in his opening remarks, and rightfully so, it's more and more starting to veer towards Atmanirbharta, which we very much welcome. And I just want to probably touch upon a couple of points real quick that would further enhance the narrative of Atmanirbhar Bharat, where I would like to say that the trials of the equipment, NCNC trials of the equipment, should be allowed from the OEM. What that would do is, number one, it would accelerate the process and also ensure that the Indian companies need not really invest upfront to create a prototype, which pretty much mirrors the OEM's technology, but will allow the forces to trial this equipment in an accelerated manner, and obviously also lessen the investments from Indian partners, because if the prototype, for example, is not selected, the Indian partners' investment might not be fruitful. So if an OEM equipment is allowed to participate in the NCNC trials, naturally when it passes, there will be a clear contractual transfer of technology that will be agreed for Indian programs, and that only benefits the forces, the MOD, as well as the Indian companies. So I think it's a key topic that potentially could be taken into consideration, where the trial equipment from an OEM could be allowed. Timeline for transfer of technology should be taken into account. Like I have been always saying, good things take time. The technology that is there for defense that needs to be transferred is exhaustive. It just does not involve transferring of blueprints. It involves hand-holding, it involves certification, first article inspection, qualification in terms of explosives, and so on. And there is a need to take the timeline into account to manage and plan for proper timelines for transfer of technology. Now, what that means is that if the transfer of technology timeline is taken into account, then we need to also accelerate the programs that are now earmarked as Make in India programs, because the transfer of technology, including qualifying and enabling the Indian partners to do manufacturing as well as maintenance, MTO2, is going to be an exhaustive process. So the faster we launch these programs and the faster we bring these programs to fruition, the better it would be for the forces to get the equipment in their hands, the better it would be for the Indian industry to absorb the technology, and better it would be for OEMs like us, who will actually enable us to handhold our Indian partners to efficiently make the technology transfer. Third point, future development and IPR could reside in the joint ventures or the joint arrangements that have been done by the OEMs and the Indian partners. The transfer of technology is not a one-time process. Transfer of technology involves transfer of technology, base technology at certain point of time, which is more of a snapshot. But in a technology world where technology is getting obsolete, faster than anything, and year over year that cycle is shortening, the residing of IP in a joint format in India, potentially a OEM Indian partner JV, or a wholly owned subsidiary, or a fully Indian company, there should be also consideration of evolutions of future technology once this technology is transferred. And there, a major hand is being played both by the OEM and the Indian player, because they need to be in a position to deal with obsolescence management and actually take this technology and develop it and evolve the configurations of equipment for the next generations and for the coming years to support for Indian government. So it's very important that the IPR resides in an entity that is commonly governed by the OEM as well as Indian partner, so that the evolutions can be controlled and the evolutions can be facilitated in a faster manner, so that the Indian partner is now able to create innovations out of the TOT that has been obtained. Last but not the least, I would like to touch upon quickly a topic on space. Space has been an evolving topic. The Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, has taken a keen interest himself in launching some of the bodies, industry bodies that are associated with space. And the only request here would be that we incentivize work in this area to be included somewhere in the offset policy as incentives, because this is the newest and the most latest form of technology that our country can get, that will propel ourselves for the decades to come to take a leadership position in this area, just like we have started to do in the area of unmanned and drones. So
Thank you.
I will pause here and happy to further take any comment, but thank you very much for allowing us to present our views.
Thank you, Ashish. That was good. You talked about ease of doing business, trials and timelines for TOT, and the future development of IPR and all that. You did talk about cyberspace and encryption that you're doing. I'm not sure will you qualify under the IDDM or Buy Indian when you come to present it. You talked about the MOD keeping its schedule for the DefExpo because I think they've synergized with the COVID going down. So somehow COVID and MOD are acting in synergy. So I think that the DefExpo will go on. I think I'll call up Mr. Vaibhav Gupta. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the small little bell from the temple so that I can ring the bell. It's time. Sorry, Vaibhav. I think it's Commodore Mukesh Bhargav. So all yours. We have just 28 minutes and 8 speakers.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber. Mr. Sanjay Jaju, Additional Secretary, Defense Production, Mr. Sanjay Maharishi, Mr. Remy Millard, and my friends from the industry. A very good afternoon to you. First of all, my compliments to Mr. Sanjay Jaju and the entire MOD for an excellent defense aspect on the budget with the 5.25 lakh crores up 13% and a capex of 1.52 lakh crores up 10%. And of course, as mentioned by Ashish also, 68% for the capex to be for the domestic players. And most importantly, 25% of the DRDO budget for private sector, including startups and innovations, is, I think, very, very good step, and my compliments to the entire team. I'm also very happy that there's a private sector also being asked to take up design and development of military platform and equipment in collaboration with DRDO. This is another good step, and reduction of imports and promotion of self-reliance in equipment is definitely going towards the Atmanirbharta. Coming to the topic of today of EODB in defense as a synergy, there are a number of points, but for paucity of time, I will just touch on few of them. Most importantly, the DCPP, the Development Cum Production Partner for DRDO, is a very good step that has been put up. We would like more and more projects to be taken up on this because this would really facilitate the Atmanirbharta and creating the defense industrial base. We have two lists, positive list of 101 and 108, but RFP and orders for these is what industry would be looking at. The FDI enhancement, automatic route of 74%. We haven't seen too much of activity on that with regard to formation of joint ventures. On the offsets front, I think the flexibility of IOP on the details of IOP permitted even after the contract signing, creation of an offset portal, faster processing and greater transparency are some of the very, very far-reaching aspects which need to be complemented. We have the enhanced indigenous content, a huge positive which is there. In addition to the Srijan portal, I think the indigenization of the component and the spare parts as a joint venture with the foreign OEM is definitely a good point. The challenges that I see in that is the long-term business association or a long-term about 10 years contract that the DPSUs and the ordnance factory should be signing it. Only then it makes a viable business case. And when we were there discussing it with our Russian partners, I think the MOQ, they were looking for a minimum amount for it to be happening. Huge impetus on the export promotion. There are a number of outreach programs which have been done, the simplification of the authorization process, the digitally signed export authorization, targeting outreach to country by country and product by product, the role of the defense attaches, the EXIM portal which has been set up, the doing away for the repeat orders, OGEL. There are a number of positive steps on EODB. The challenges that we see and the recommendation is that if we can have more line of credits for defense to the friendly countries, and also in case of any line of credit other than MOD that are expiring, and if there are opportunities that can be extended to the industry. On the design and development, Make One is, I've been talking about it, it is a vehicle to make the India's system integration champion. And as Remy also mentioned in his opening remark, this is something which needs to be promoted for the Indian industry, and we don't see much happening on that. We would expect more Make programs, Make 1 programs to be coming up. Make 2, the first program of USS has been given, but out of the 56 project and 30,000 crore, I think we should have many more contracts being signed on this. Mr. Sanjay Raju's IDEX project, 4 rounds have already happened with 84 startups and a grant of 38 technologies. We see more and more contracts getting signed in terms of deep technology, cybersecurity, 5G, and the building blocks of Industry 4.0. This is what my recommendation would be. On the test facilities, definitely a positive step. ERV, the third-party inspections are all positive steps. I'm very happy with regard to the drone policy which was announced in 2021, and also the drone Shakti and the startup for skilling of courses at the ITIs is definitely a very positive step, and this needs to get promoted even more. During the beating of retreat earlier this week, we saw 1,000 drones demonstration, which is only, I think, the 4th country in the world to be able to do that. That only shows the competence of the industry to move in a fast forward mode and step up on the movement pedal, and that is something that needs to get promoted. Defense R&D for startups, industry, and for academia definitely is a big step, and we would see that industry will take it with both hands. In addition to the 108 products that have been announced by technology that have been made available by the DRDO, this would be definitely a positive step going forward. Last points that I have is we would look at the government moving in the defense also for the EODB 2.0, the next series of reforms that can be done, and there are points that can be shared with the additional secretary, and also for ease of living, using the IT bridges and also single point access for all the services that are available from the MOD to the industry, standardization, removal of overlapping compliances. These are some of the points that can be taken up. And last but not the least, a shorter corporate exit from 2 years to 6 months that has been announced. I think these are very positive steps. My compliments to the initiatives that have been taken, and we look forward to a proactive and positive interaction in a proactive manner, as is being done in the past years, to continue under Mr. Sanjay Jaju and his team. Thank you very much, Colonel Kuber. I would take up any questions if there are later.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. With your knowledge, I think you can go on and on. There are so many more things that you can tell us. So, in the interest of time, what I've done is I've put a timer, and you'll be getting a thing at the end of 4 minutes. So, Vaibhav from MKU, the man who's been in the front leading this company in many ways, including technologies and in fact a lot of exports. Yeah, Vaibhav, all yours. I'm starting this clock now.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Sanjay Jaju, sir, and Sanjay Maharishi, sir, and my industry colleagues. On behalf of the industry, we would like to congratulate the Ministry of Defense on getting the largest allocation in the recently announced financial budget of India. The announcements made in the budget are very encouraging for the defense industry and will encourage the private industry to participate in design and development of military and platforms and equipments. The Indian government has been proactively bringing in slew of policies to boost the defense manufacturing in India, and the industry has benefited from them largely. However, now as a nation, when we talk of defense exports, there are no real incentives at the moment to boost the exports. Therefore, as an industry member, we would like to recommend that the PLI scheme be extended to the defense manufacturing as well. This will help us in two ways. First, it will increase the participation of number of players in the local defense manufacturing due to the incentives of the PLI scheme. And second, it will help the Indian industry to compete globally, which shall lead to substantial increment in exports from India and bring in foreign exchange to the country. The defense and testing infrastructure scheme is seeing a lot of traction from the private participants to help build the much needed testing infrastructure in the country. This will provide domestic industry the required support to test within the country, leading to saving of time and money. It will also give big boost to the industry for cutting edge research and development. The IDEX initiative of the Ministry of Defense to provide support and platform to startups interested in defense opportunity is driving innovation in the sector. This is also helping the large established players to identify and forge partnerships with the startups in the new technology areas. Even our company MKU is exploring opportunities to invest in the few startups which will not only cater to the domestic demand but also generate export opportunities, and these kinds of partnerships will help the startups to find the real benefit of innovation which lies in the hands of the end user. uh, Another big milestone last year has been the corporatization of the ordnance factories into 7 new entities, and has expanded the scope of private industry to forge partnerships with the new DPSUs for cooperation and extend the scope of defense manufacturing. The large infrastructure and knowledge of these 7 DPSUs could also help in adding to the defense exports of platforms and products, and some of them are really good if we can find the opportunity to export them. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of the private participants in this forum will also be looking at this area. At the end, it is our suggestion that the Ministry of Defense should be the nodal agency for meeting all the regulatory and other compliances required by the private industry in the defense sector to help in ease of doing business. This will provide a single window mechanism to the industry and also help in faster execution of clearances, as the Defense Ministry would be better equipped in terms of knowledge to deal with intricacies of the products and technologies related to defense. That's all from my side, sir. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind.
I can't believe that you're done in less than 4 minutes. So that's really great. And even before the thing came on, so I had to close that. But that's good. You talked about the PLI scheme. I'll be very keen to know. We can have a discussion if you can give us some sort of an idea as to how you can bring about a PLI scheme. Let's say even in your own field like BPJs. So I'm very happy to take it to the MOD on your behalf. So that is one good thing. You talked about the largest allocation to the armed forces. I'm not sure if it's good enough. So I leave it at that. It may be the largest amongst all the other ministries, but I don't know if it's good enough for the armed forces modernization the way they are. And you talked about the DTIS and the exports. I generally believe that with two of you, L&T and you talking, who are exporting and talking about it, and you never mentioned a word, which means there is a lot of synergy in exports, and I think that's good news. So with this, I think, but you made a very interesting point on nodal agency, and I think that is important, and the single window, if what you meant. So I think I'll call upon another very illustrious person from an illustrious company, a technology company, Anand Technologies, Air Vice Marshal Banoji Rao. Sir, all yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sanjay Jaju, and good afternoon from friends from the industry. I have seen a lot of important points have been discussed, like Mr. Ashish told that the trial equipment to be allowed from the OEMs, that's a very important point. But along with the point, another important issue to be resolved in the DAP is the trial equipment to be retained till staff evaluation report is signed. This is a very, very big problem for any industry. Sometimes it may take 6 to 8 months to get the staff evaluation report signed. So this issue may be seen by the Ministry of Defense. I will just briefly touch upon the points which are meant for ease of doing business. We have spoke about drone policy, and the drones as a platform is being addressed. But the most importantly, the drone weapons and loitering munitions are going to be the future of armaments for the military. Being an armament specialist, I feel India will have more and more, or not only India, in the world over, more and more loitering weapons and more drone weapons. We don't have any policy on the armament QA, armament certifications, armament licensing for drones. That is the payloads. Similarly, comment, ELINT payloads of drones. The QA and certification issues need to be addressed, because who will be the in charge, whether it is the DGQA, DGAQA, or any other special agency. Because if let's say if you involve CEMILAC will try to follow the same policy as if it is being done by the fighters. So the fighter aircraft will have a different speeds and G loads, so that's not applicable. So we need to have some kind of a regulations in this, so that everybody follows the same policy. Another issue which is bothering the private industry is missiles industry. DRDO has introduced so many missiles, and the missiles are going to be manufactured in India with a lot of expeditious development of missiles by the DRDO. I'm sure private industry will definitely participate. In addition to the missiles manufactured by DRDO, we have a large number of missiles, especially for the Air Force, large number of missiles manufactured by the foreign OEMs. Foreign OEMs are approaching the private firms to do the refurbishment, repair, and supply of spares. Whereas the MOD, as latest as 15th July 2021, issued a circular that only BDL will do the refurbishment. So on one side, we are saying that all private companies should be promoted. And in fact, the Anand Technology signed an MOU in presence of MOD with a missile manufacturing firm in Russia for conducting this refurbishment, but now the opportunity is being denied. So this may be looked into by the ministry, that let it be a competitive bidding. Whosoever is good, ultimately the user gets benefited, and OEM actually we'd like to involve with foreign vendor, let him involve with foreign vendor. That should be the policy. That's what I feel. Because if you remember, the most important aspect of the missile is seekers, and seekers are made by the private industry, not by the BDL or any government company. So the private industry is in a better position to conduct any refurbishments. And I have a third point is this COMET license. COMET license, generally the licensing body sits once in 2 months. Now more and more armament stores are going to be exported. If they sit once in 2 months, and if there is a query, and again the query is asked, and then again we wait for 2 months, so we lose time. So Ministry of Defense need to involve to see that this COMET license periodicities may be increased, because we are thinking of going to be an export nation. So the licensing also should match with the aims of our dreams of exports. The third thing is IDEX is one of the best platform government has initiated. And I suggest if you can look into the financial limits to be increased depending on the types of projects, so that IDEX is completely Indian design and development. We'll be able to develop more weapon systems with increasing timelines. Remember, the DRDO, each program is funded so much of money. So if a private industry is expected to fund the entire money in the one project, it's not possible. So that's one of the point is that increase the limits. Then one of the most important point which Commodore Bhargav pointed out is long-term contracts. 10-year contracts is the one which facilitates the industry to see, okay, if we train a manpower, if we establish an equipment, then can we retain the manpower and equipment for next 10 years to meet the targets? So this is the most important issue. And the other important issues have been spoken by my industry friends. So at this point, I leave it to the Colonel Kuber.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So in the additional 1 minute, you did that. Other it will start blinking again. Unfortunately, I can't help it. It blinks on time. So I think you made a very important point on the refurbishment of things, which is reserved for EPS. And on one side, we talk non-reservation, and here we are actually reserving certain things. And I think that level playing field point that you're bringing up is a very, very important point. You did talk about this comment. I think that is important, and I'm sure the additional secretary will take care of that. The financial limit to IDEX, I really believe, but then Vaibhav says we've got the largest budget, and in the largest budget, we cannot afford to give more than what we are giving today in IDEX. So it has to be larger than the largest budget if you want more money into the IDEX. And the periodicity of SCOMET, of course, I think that's a very good thing that you talked about. Thank you, sir. And without much ado, I think there were about 124 of these engines ordered. And I think the person in the limelight is Ashmita Sethi. And I'm talking about the PW100 for the C295s. And of course, I think the largest number of engines flying in the country is from Pratt and Whitney. So Ashmita, all yours, the timer starts now.
That's unfair, Colonel Kuber. Timers for some, timers for, and no timers for some. Anyway, I'll try and keep it within.
Okay, we'll not have timers for you. Okay.
Anyway, I'm very honored to be here amongst all of you. Colonel Kuber, the chair of the committee, Remy Maila, and Ashish Saraf, and Commodore Mukesh Bhargava. So without thanking all of you more than this, I'll start. I think what I want to bring in here, because all my other colleagues and counterparts here have spoken some very important points, let me bring in something new to this, which is that India's aerospace sector is at an inflection point. So before we talk about synergy of policies and ease of doing business, it's important to understand where we are today as a defense and aerospace ecosystem versus where we were 7 to 10 years back. I do believe that, we from this point can actually leapfrog to becoming a major global competitor if we get our act right. India has already exported defense equipment worth $1.1 billion in 2020-21 compared to, exports we were doing, let's say in 2014-15, which was about just $200 to $250 million. So there's been also, as we saw in the budget, which all of you have mentioned, the major thrust from the government through policy and other measures to encourage this self-reliance and Atmanirbhar Bharat theme. India also had pushed MRO reforms to position itself as a regional hub. I'm now talking of the defense and aerospace sector here holistically and not just emphasizing the defense aerospace sector, because I'm going to talk of commonality in which there is huge synergy, I feel. So last year, 64% of the defense capital acquisition towards procurement was in domestic procurement. And this year, it'll be about 68%. So I'm sure we'll achieve that target. And that in itself is a great positive direction. R&D will be opened up to the industry at 25%. That is also, a great push by the government. However, it is important to note that while India moves towards this positive goal of self-reliance, it should take into consideration that global partners will always be essential to a robust and thriving and strong aerospace ecosystem in India. Foreign OEMs have helped to drive this growth story and self-reliance in the past 7 to 10 years. They have, companies like Airbus, Boeing, Pratt and Whitney, etc., have all shown their commitment to build and invest in India. Our own sister company and we ourselves have about a total of 5,000 employees in India and several sites across India, which export out of India in millions of dollars, bringing that export to India. So now these OEMs are waiting to achieve scale in India. And how do you achieve scale? The government needs to support how we achieve scale, because this will be essential to the growth of the sector, I feel, going forward. And commonality between the civil aerospace sector and the defense aerospace sector is very important here. As companies build more and more, this scale will be very important. When we look at the laws of physics, they are the same between both civil aerospace and defense aerospace. So, why this distinction? The government should streamline the process of, India is operating in a global competition with countries like Turkey and Korea. And if we look at these examples, they have utilized these synergies to offer scale to OEMs, and due to which these foreign OEMs are able to produce at a lower cost, and thus they are more competitive, and therefore they invest more in those countries. Similarly here, what I'm recommending is that there should be this synergy between civil aviation sector and defense aviation sector. Just a quick example, currently in the DPEPP, it stated that investments in aviation sector which help in co-development and strengthening defense ecosystem would be facilitated in association with the Ministry of Civil Aviation. In contrast, the DAP 2020 does not really encourage or focus these synergies. We've taken these recommendations to the MOD and hope that these divergent policies towards the same goals would be aligned. Finally, I want to bring in one more point, which is that we need synergies in policy making and their on-ground implementation between the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of Civil Aviation, because all of them are moving towards the same shared goals. When there is ambiguity on clauses and notification or on their implementation on ground, the confidence of the OEMs to move ahead and invest is certainly diminished. One example is the issue of rationalization of the GST rates on labor for MRO and bringing in aircraft and engine parts for the purpose of the very same MRO as the government had intended when it decided to jumpstart the MRO industry in India in 2020 by bringing in policies, reforms, etc. But as we can see, nothing has really taken off the ground. GST rate on labor was reduced to 5%, and on components and parts which are imported in, they still continue to attract a GST rate from 18% to 28%. The government had intended, this would all be zero rated down to 0%, but that clearly has not happened. Another example between implementation of policies and is...
Ashmita, we are running out of time, please.
Yeah, so this is just another 2 lines, which is about recognition of the Indian offset partner. Recently, as you know, Colonel Kuber, and you've been talking about it with other OEMs, is a note on the DOMW website that stated that a wholly owned subsidiary of a foreign vendor is not eligible as an Indian offset partner to discharge offset obligation. This again is going contrary to what was stated, again, as you say, in the company's law, in those acts, in a previous DPP policy, where clearly an Indian offset partner is defined as a subsidiary also of a, foreign OEM. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. In fact, I told my timer not to sound, but it has a very bad habit of sounding. So
how much time did I take?
You talked
5
about
minutes?
the
5
inflection.
minutes?
It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter. So inflection point, you talked about the inflection point, the need to scale. You talked about, many speakers have talked about the 68% being allocated to the domestic industries. I think it puts a pressure on the domestic industries and also a huge responsibility. I do not know if the Indian industry is actually. So I think Commodore Raveshwaran will be able to tell us more, because these large industries should be able to tell us if the policies are so synergized and they are happy going ahead with this. All yours, sir.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber, Mr. Sanjay Jaju, Mr. Rahman Sheikh from MEA, my colleagues from the defense industry. I can see many friends here on my screen. I can see Remy, Ola, Ashish, Dr. Kansal, Commodore Bhargav, Vaibhav, amongst many others. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. To the pertinent question that Colonel Kuber raised as a moderator, our government has made a clarion call of Atmanirbhar Bharat in May 2020, and it is in furtherance of Make in India theme, which was announced in 2014. The aim was to increase the share originally of the domestic GDP and the manufacturing sector, which was then at 17% to 25% by 2025. Also, defense sector has been identified as one of the 25 champion sectors, and thereafter now as a strategic sector. In pursuance of this national mission, Ministry of Defense has launched several policies, several reforms to change the landscape of the defense industry. I'm certain our colleagues from the government will speak about this in detail, of the several initiatives that they've taken. Yet I'll make a mention in the passing of a few. The positive indigenous list has been wholeheartedly welcomed by the domestic industry. The DAP 2020 prescribes a very clear focus for a vibrant, dynamic, and capable defense industrial base in India. There are adequate provisions to improve the indigenous contents in all products. This is a great step in the right direction, not only to meet the intent of increasing the Indian domestic manufacturing, but also for targeting the ease of doing business, which is one of the key considerations. Allocation of capital budget, many people have spoken about. It is very welcome. And while the bulk of it goes to DPSUs today, we do look forward to a healthy mix while going forward. And another point that comes to my mind immediately is exports, where our government has announced its intent to access all possible export opportunities for friendly nations. However, today, we are only at the tip of the iceberg, I think as mentioned by Remy. We are only exporting small parts and components. There could be one odd company like Mahindra Defense that exports platforms or the recent BrahMos sales. This needs to change. We need to start exporting platforms out of this country, and this is something that I'll also dwell upon. So while a lot of work has gone into ease of doing business in the last 5 years, I would think that we have reached a point where we need stability in policy. We need stability in policy, and we have to move wholeheartedly towards implementation of this policy. I say that again, the key is implementation of this policy. Of course, incremental improvements of ease of doing business is important, and this will be an ongoing process. Therefore, the key question here is that we need to deliberate what are the transformative steps that we need to take as a nation. I will leave a few thoughts behind with our colleagues here so that we can dwell upon these. The first point that comes to my mind is to stop creation of monopolies. This is important both from a business environment perspective and from ease of doing business. It is recognized world over, unless there is competition, it will not foster innovation or bring about improvement in quality. Further, if contracts are awarded on nomination basis without competition, our targeted high growth could be adversely affected. Today, we have monopolies in the defense sector, and we as a nation have to consciously move away from that approach. That being said, perhaps the most transformational step is the implementation of the strategic partnership model with the private sector without any dilution. Only then will we move up the value chain and will private sector start exporting large platforms like helicopters. Indian industry has applauded the MOD for moving forward with the strategic partnership model by releasing the EOIs for helicopters and submarines. All of us look up to MOD for implementing the decision of the CCS, our cabinet committee on security, for implementation of the strategic partnership model. From the industry, we feel that this is a logical next step to make our aerospace ecosystem stronger in our quest for Atmanirbhar Bharat. New jobs will be created, a new ecosystem will be ushered in, and importantly, we will see a sizable amount of FDI also coming in. Of course, as the previous speaker mentioned, scale will also get generated, and this is something that will also get targeted. The transformation through SP model, which is with the private sector, is imperative today as jobs in defense sector are stagnant and also as FDI influx is low, since FDI only comes in for parts, components, and small systems, and also as large parts are not exported. And through the SP model also, we will ensure that monopolies will not be created or encouraged, competition will not be fostered, and most importantly, a second manufacturing line in addition to the existing private sector.
Are we losing Kamala Ravishwaran?
Yeah, I couldn't hear him towards the end.
Okay. Ravish, we are not able to hear you, but I think you made very important points on the stopping of nominations and not creating the monopolies and implementation of the SP model, and you have been exporting platforms. I think that's and I think the stability of the policy. Well, we are actually exceeded time, so I'll really request the last two speakers. Actually, it falls on them as a responsibility, and I hate to do this. So, General Oberoi, all yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Kuber. I'll definitely try to stick to the allotted time with no repetition of what has been already spoken by the other speakers. Gentlemen, you already know the several needs have been implemented to synergize the defense sector. In this connection, DP 2020 DP has given n number of rules and regulations which actually is out doing business. I will just highlight, I'll rather give just two recommendations based on what the budget allotment recently has been. An excellent point has been that the main thrust has been on domestic production, and especially for the capital layout, as it was given last year, it was 58%, and now the current year it has gone to 68%. Rather, the next year it has gone to 68%. What we have to realize and see that it is the ease of sustaining in business which is more important, and we have to give incentives to the others to join the business. We have to see this, ladies and gentlemen, if the orders are not placed with the industry and the budget is left unspent or surrendered at the end of the fiscal year, the industry will collapse without sufficient demand, however good our rules or regulations could be. In this connection, I would like to mention that in the recent budget, we were surprised to see that the allocation of the capital allocation for the army was the least this time. It was just about 21%, with Navy getting 31 and Air Force getting a little over 36.8. And what we read in the media, or rather current year allocation of 36,481 crores was given, but the army only it is surprising when the industry is craving for supply of. Why should the fund well, we are nobody to question that. I'm sure better than is there are some procedural delays due to which the sanctions could not be granted. Then this should be designated as a non-lapsable fund. It should be carried forward, and not that they should be surrendered and it finishes off. That is my one recommendation. And second is that the new scheme of the DRDO, DP, Development Come Production Partner, that is an excellent scheme, and this should be given a thrust, where the industry in the R&D is incorporated right from the very beginning. And earlier, the DRDO was producing prototype, DRDO was doing all the user trials, development trial, and everything. Now the prototype comes from the industry, and an integrated trial is carried out by the user, development agency, production agency, quality assurance agency. This is something superb. This is a great step, and they should be given a further thrust. My one more recommendation is to get the new investors. Today we have got a defense investor cell. Probably we require something little more than that. A new investor who has no previous knowledge of the defense sector, maybe he is entering into the defense sector new, or he is switching over from his core business, which is something different. It requires a very, very detailed knowledge of entering into the defense. He requires a knowledge of what are the products that are required, what is the wish list of the Army. This is already being issued by the Army Design Bureau. What are the 1,000-odd beautiful, wonderful technologies which the DRDO has got, can be provided to them, and these DRDO technologies all can be absorbed into the defense forces. What are the requirements of the defense forces for the next 3, 5, 6, 10 years? Based on that, he would know, he would get an idea he requires what should be the size of his plant, manufacturing unit, how much money he should invest. Now, unless an investor gets the real knowledge of what is the requirement, what is the product, what is the sellability, what is the competition, he is very reluctant to enter into a defense production. Not taking time, we have improved our ranking, 79 positions, and but we are the third largest startup economy in the world after USA and China. Therefore, being happy with 63rd position, I think it's a wake-up call for us. We should be somewhere in the first 10 position. Therefore, we definitely need to be somewhere in the first 10 and must keep on working further with improve banking and attract the investors to make us realize our plans of becoming a $5 trillion economy at the earliest. Thank you, and Jai.
Thank you, General, for that. You talked about the unspent money, the ease of sustaining business, and the unspent budget. And I think I should remind all of us that MOD is the only ministry which houses the finance ministry inside it. And yet we end up not spending money. I don't know why. So that's something that we need to ponder about. And yeah, you did talk about the new investors' knowledge and things like that. I think that's very important. Without much ado, because we are waiting for the keynote and the special address from Mr. Jaju and Mr. Noor Rahman Sheikh. So, but then I think it's time for Ola, and the last word to you, Ola, before I call Remy back into this.
Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great privilege to be part of this seminar building up for Def Expo. Now we only wait to see that the quarantine regulations are being removed as well, so we can have a lot of international guests coming in. Now, India being the second largest defense market in the world is without doubt a very attractive market for an OEM. But as been alluded to earlier, it's also challenging when it comes to certain issues. I will try to mention a few of them, because when investing money into a project that might result in a future contract, you need predictability. And that doesn't matter if you're a foreign OEM or a private Indian company. And that said, the procurement process in India takes time. From an RFI to someone being awarded a contract, it's not unusual to see timelines for at least 5 years, or if not longer. And during that period, many prerequisites that lay the foundation for different bids has changed. Now, over the last years, I've been here now since 2018, several policies have seen major changes, mostly to support indigenous capabilities and build up of a self-reliant India. Now, myself being from a small country from the northern part of Europe, who have achieved just that, I fully understand and respect that ambition. But at the same time, India wants to attract foreign OEMs to invest in production facilities in India for the Indian market, but also for the export market. Now, the new DAP 2020 with the latest updates in 2021 is for sure the foundation for future procurements, and have refined the playing field of defense procurement. But that said, there are certain technologies or components that are not available in India, and taxes and customs makes it challenging to import them and at the same time be competitive. In the same manner, certain raw materials are not available in India, like specific quality aluminium or carbon fiber of demanded specification. And once again, it's hard to actually become competitive when importing these articles. So this all creates obstacles in the overall ambition to build up indigenous capabilities when it comes to design and production of high-tech products. Now, the procurement categories where we have the priority for Make in India is key. It restricts FDI to 49%. That is, of course, reducing the control of the company in question for the foreign OEM. And if you are to take full liability of an end product, then controlling the production process, quality, and making sure that delivery follows the agreed time schedules is key. And I think that for most foreign OEMs, if not all, accepting full liabilities without being in control is a major hurdle that needs to be looked into for the future. In the same manner, IPR, developed over the years by foreign OEMs, bringing it into India, needs to be looked into, because if I understand the regulations correctly, when further developed in country, it could actually be taken over by the Indian government through margin rights and then used both for the Indian as well as the export market. This is once again, I think, a hurdle when bringing in the latest technology into India. And on the IPR subject, the latest guidelines issued by the MOD regarding IPR and transfer of technology for future contracts indicate several hurdles that foreign OEMs will have challenges with. Now, retraction of certain projects in the Buy Global that happened lately means what? Is that category actually totally abandoned, or is it still a valid category for procurement? And what if there is a small number contract not motivating large investments? All in all, I think there are several question marks that needs to be addressed, and not the least the latest category in the DAP 2020 Buy Global Manufacturing India. We really welcome 74% FDI. What will happen with that in the future? Will it increase or will it decrease? And we would, of course, like to see even higher levels in accordance with the automated route. If that's not possible, then clarify what's needed to receive 100% according to the manual route. All in all, this boils down to that to overcome these challenges, coordinated policies, as well as predictability of the same, are of great importance for us, especially since supporting India's ambition will need serious investments going forward with regards to setting up local entities or partnering with a local Indian prime. So in summary, my company Saab is keen to support in achieving Make in India and a self-reliant India. We will continue to interact both with government, DPSU, as well as private industry to find solutions beneficial for all parties. And with that, in the benefit of time, I thank you all and best of luck with DEF Expo 2022.
Thank you, Ola. You made very, very interesting points. The most important of them is the retraction of the of some of these programs towards the finale. I mean, we've gone through, we have a LTIPP, we have a DAP, we have a AON, we have got a DAC, we do RFI, we do RFP, and at the end of the day, one fine day, there's an axe that falls. And I think you talked about that. And I think that is something we need to talk about. So I have great pleasure in calling back Remy Millard, the chairman of the ASSOCHAM Defense Committee. So Remy, there are some interesting points that have been made. I'll just summarize for you. One is the DPSUs are still leading the charge. The capacities and capabilities are still a constraint with the private. Leasing should be complementary to procurement. Operational excellence is more important. Timelines and speed of doing business. And people talked about the 68% allocation to the private industry, and that places an enormous responsibility here, and therefore a synergy in policies is required. And between the companies' laws, between the licenses, between the export, between SCOMET, between DGFT licenses, between MHA, MOD. So I think there's a lot of thing is required over there. People talked about data analytics and the R&D budget that's been given. Say the foreign OEMs are doing cybersecurity, encryption, data analytics. Will that count for an Indian Indian content? Trials of NCNC. Then we talked about timelines for TOT that should be extended. We talked about trial equipment to be retained. Will that pose a problem? SCOMET and then DPSUs being asked to do the refurbishment in place of private industries who today are making missiles, and they are technologically intensive. And IDEX financial limits, if it can be increased. and then that we are at an inflection point, and I think we need to do a lot of synergy here, and stability in policy that's required, and ease of doing business. Unspent budget is a concern, and of course marching rights, Ola just talked to us about, and if you have to bring in the latest technology, I'll be very happy with the FDI policy now. So we've got very eminent speakers coming up, Mr. Jaju, Mr. Noor Rehman Sheikh, and Air Vice Marshal P.S. Sareen. So Remy, I would like you to give a little thought and welcome Mr. Jaju, please.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to all speakers today. Well, respected Additional Secretary Defense Production, Sri Sanjay Jajuji, very good afternoon to you. We are meeting just 2 days after the national budget that has reaffirmed the government's commitment to the Atmanirbhar Bharat. The government is offering support to create opportunities for domestic industry in the defense sector. Therefore, it's a good time to ask if the Indian private sector is ready to take advantage of such proactive enabling measures. I think you will agree that private sector is as much a stakeholder in national security as the public sector. The answer is not in either or cheese or dessert, as we say in French, between the DPSU and private sector. Both need to progress simultaneously in a competitive manner. And to benefit truly from the government's Atmanirbhar Bharat policy, the private sector needs the right partnerships with the DPSUs and with the foreign manufacturers to rise up the value chain and become complex platform manufacturers. In this regard, and that was mentioned several times today, the strategic partnership model introduced in the DPP 2016 represents a unique opportunity for the private sector to make a breakthrough and establish a sound defense industrial base. We believe that any dilution of this SP model will only serve to undermine the government's own fair intentions and perpetuate a non-level playing field against the Indian private sector. Let me also stress that the credibility of a defense procurement process is sacrosanct. An investor will put his money on the basis of confidence that he has in the stability of the procurement process, and shifting policy goalposts are counterproductive. My final point, and that's a critical one, will be on achieving excellence in execution to avoid protracted timelines. Protracted timelines delay the much required maturing of the Indian industrial ecosystem towards achieving Atmanirbhar Bharat. In summary, we need policy stability, regulatory certainty, and respect for deadlines. So thank you very much. I will just conclude by saying we are all very much excited and to participating to DefExpo in March. And I look forward to meeting you all physically at DefExpo very soon. Thank you very much.
So it's time for me to call upon Mr. Sanjay Jaju, the Additional Secretary, Defense Production, Ministry of Defense, Government of India, who's going to enlighten us, as he does always, with how this synergy has already been achieved, most of it, and how so much more that can be done, and what else can we do to achieve the synergy, both in terms of synergizing of the policies and ease of doing business. Mr. Sanjay Jaju, sir, all yours. I still don't see Mr. Sanjay Jaju on the screen, yet maybe he's busy with something else. So in the interest of time, maybe I should go up to our special address today for Mr. Noor Rehman Sheikh. Noor Rehman Sheikh is the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs. He deals with economic diplomacy. They do a lot of yoga at home. I've seen some of his Twitter posts, and both in Manipal, his talks in Jeddah, and how he has been a vocal encourage what the vocal encouragement that he gives to people, and the way he motivates. So here we have synergy of policies between the MOD and the MEA, especially in terms of exports. There are some countries which are banned, and there are some products which are banned, and then there is some. Can we have a green channel? Can we have a red channel, a yellow channel, and how we can manage this? And even in terms of FDI, and when we talk of military diplomacy, on one side we're talking of exports, and second side we talk of diplomacy. I think I leave it to you, sir. All yours.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber. It was very nice of you to have reflected on some of my Twitter posts. Well, I'm also an ex-NDA, so there's a lot of affinity to defense and other things. I think I'm audible,
Oh
right?
my God, sir, that is excellent, and I have to double welcome you when you say you're ex-NDA, and we are really talking about military diplomacy here,
Yes.
and I'm 59 NDA, just for records.
I'm 99 goals. Thank you. In fact, I have been listening to some of the address given before me. And then I think the sense I get is basically of one of optimism, of we are not happy with the current rankings we have. Of course, we being the third largest in terms of or highest in terms of military expenditure is nothing to be proud of. But of course, we are more into Atmanirbharta, with self-reliance that is very deeply ingrained in our system. Buoyed, of course, by the Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, Indian defense industry ecosystem is at a crucial juncture in its journey towards achieving the goal of self-reliance in defense production by indigenizing the defense modernization, as also concurrently establishing brand India in the global defense industry by direct exports of cost-efficient indigenous equipment and systems to deliver performance and frugality through innovation. And I think India's recent ranking of in the Global Innovation Index of 46, I think we have a lot of scope to improve it. In fact, I heard one of the speakers say that we should be in top 10. Why not? In anything that we do, we should be in the top 3 or 5. That should be our target. And I think there's a lot of whole of India approach, whole of government approach, whole of industry approach is very much visible in the times that we are currently seeing. Since opening of the sector for participation by the private sector in 2001 and promulgation of defense procurement procedure, every aspect of Indian defense sector, be it policy, organization, procedure, or stakeholders approach, has evolved to indigenize the defense sector. And over the past few years, it advanced to the overarching narrative of Make in India and for the world. Therefore, themes such as ease of doing business, creating a vibrant defense industry ecosystem capable of indigenous design, development, and manufacture, IDDM, of all types of military platforms and weapon systems, hierarchical prioritization for IDDM and other indigenous procurement, providing impetus for domestic manufacturing and accessing global demand to enable sustainable growth of the defense industry ecosystem have become dominant through the last decade or so. Much, of course, has been achieved across the value chain. Of course, we have all realized that COVID in the last 2 years, the pandemic has played some, obviously some played negative roles there, but I think we will are resilient enough to make a comeback. And of course, much remains to be seen to be achieved through the self-reliant route, which we certainly will do. And then we being a very important geopolitical player, and then of course through the defense diplomacy that we do, MOD of course takes the lead in that, along with MEA and other agencies of the government that we do, of course, in coordination with the relevant industry players also. In the last 7-8 years, or in the last decade, government of India has built on its international position globally, more importantly in the near and far neighborhood in Indian Ocean region. Some of these initiatives, as we all are aware, just for refreshing our memories, I'd like to point out. This includes 2+2 dialogue mechanism to combine the synergies of foreign and defense teams. which have been instituted. At present, there are defense and foreign secretary level dialogues with Japan and Australia, and the ministerial level with US. The frequency of foreign visits of Indian delegations, including chiefs of all three services, defense minister, defense secretary, and other key stakeholders from the sector, has increased remarkably. Of course, as we all know, COVID pandemic has been a bit of a break keeper, but I'm sure that this will be a matter of past in the near future. The defense diplomacy typically includes defense agreements, exports, providing aid for the purchase of defense products, joint exercises, maritime cooperation, and training. There are a number of bilateral military industrial conferences that have been held with different partners to explore mutually beneficial opportunities in the Make in India and Make with India framework. Military training teams are engaged with various countries, particularly in Africa. India's peacekeeping contingents are widely appreciated and acknowledged in the UN system. Foreign military officers from various countries, numbering about 40, regularly participate in India's higher level defense courses and get exposed to Indian defense capabilities. Some of the Indian defense entities are considering opening their business offices in various regions, like including in ASEAN, to access new markets in the region. India's membership to Missile Technology Control Regime of 2016, Western Hour Agreement of 2017, the Australia Group of 2018 have removed several restrictions on defense exports. As we all know, there's up to 74% of FDI in defense is open for through the automatic route. These are some of the steps that have been taken up as part of the defense diplomacy. We are very sure that the enthusiasm that the industry has, the participation from the private sector, the easing of doing business for manufacturing locally as well as with tie-ups, technology access and transfer, India's defense exports will only increase. Of course, we also note that the exports at one point in time, it's almost about 11,000 crores in 2018-19, and which came to 8,500 or so in 2020-21. Of course, as we say, COVID is a factor. But as we all know, India has also set for itself a target of $400 billion for its merchandise exports for the year 2021-22. And in fact, all the missions, all the Indian missions abroad have been given this target to reach with each of the country. And glad to share that so far 334 billion worth of export, merchandise export has been achieved so far for this current financial year. And we are very confident that this export will certainly close for $100 billion easily. So something like this, if you are able to do in defense, will be great. I mean, like, we have having these country-wise targets where our missions are also told clearly that this is the target for you and you have to work towards this in coordination with, of course, the MOD, the defense attaches, the industry, the MEA, and everyone involved. It would be great. It would lead to certainly, making the target of the defense exports increasing much beyond the current figures to achieve. So there was the thoughts that I had in terms of defense diplomacy, in terms of what we can link up with the export targeting that we already are currently doing. And I believe that with the current environment, with the current atmosphere of a very competitive India that we are, with a lot of emphasis on Atmanirbharta, ease of doing business, on innovation, we believe that the defense industry will grow. The defense exports will certainly reach its milestones in the near future. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you all. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mohammed Noor Rahman Shah. That was an excellent rendition of what the MEA can do and how MEA is in coordination with the MOD to do this. I remember at some point in time, 2005-06, and always before that, there was always a Indian Foreign Service officer posted in the MOD as the Joint Secretary Exports. and I think that continued even as the PIC for some time, and I do not know what's the status now, but I think there has been always a great relationship between the two ministries.
It is still there. It is still there, sir.
It is still there, of course.
Yes.
Of course, it's still there, and I'm sure it's only improved. And I think you talked about all the regimes and how things have eased up. You talked about the merchandise going up to 400 billion. I was only thinking, can we count guns and missiles as merchandise? And I think we'll do well. So to do that, I think we have to ease a lot of restrictions and see in things which has already been done. And ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you at this point in time that if you ever want to see how Shirshashan is done, please go and visit the Twitter of Mohammed Noor Rehman Shah and Sheikh, and you will see that, perfect Shirshashan, and it's wonderful, and therefore, you can see the physical fitness over there. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time and being with us. But the man who's been in the front and leading this entire thing for the last about 5 years, since the first day he stepped into the office, I remember him speaking in an event in FICCI. And he said, we need to rationalize so much of this, because he's been the IT secretary. He's actually revolutionized a lot in Telangana, and he's been in the forefront in revolutionizing most of the policies, the draft production and export policy, the licensing policy. I remember him sitting on the licensing committees and saying why we should not give you. He said, don't ever say as to why we should not give. Please say as to why we should give. Let's find those reasons why we should give the licenses. And today we have got more than 550 licenses, and I think the industry is doing extremely well. He has drafted the entire DPR for the 2 states. He came up with the policies for the defense corridors. He's coming out with a number of schemes in defense, and he's the man in the front today in taking production to the levels that we have seen today, close to about 80,000 crores. So, ladies and gentlemen, with a very, very warm heart and very wonderful day today, we welcome Mr. Sanjay Jaju to address us with the keynote address today. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, good evening, friends. All of you are aware that enhancing the ease of doing defense business has been one of our primary mandates in this department, and trying to make the best efforts possible to ensure how we ease the entire process. In fact, if I can tell you last half an hour what I was doing, I was actually doing something similar to that only. There were certain problems posed by the industry, and we were trying to resolve some of those regulatory and procedural bottlenecks that sometimes come in. And because the whole idea is that we want the defense manufacturing ecosystem in our country to grow, and we also want our system to allow a robust mix of the public as well as the private sector. And it's only when the private sector starts occupying, I may use the words, commanding heights of the defense business, then we'll actually understand that the market-led behavior is starting to set in into the defense ecosystem. Good things are that now close to 550 companies have taken defense license, and this number used to be some paltry 150 around 2014, so it's almost like a 4 times increase. Of course, many of them are yet to commence business, but the fact remains that they have intentions to commence this business, and then they've gone through this entire process. They're going to abide by the principles laid out in the security manual. Goes to show that the process has become easier. A lot of reforms have been done in terms of the licensing. I recall correctly, the entire defense product list was streamlined, if I may use that word, because I recall when we had seen that list, first thing we realized that assault rifle was in one place, rifle was in one place. So now whether a rifle is an assault rifle or an assault rifle includes a rifle was a question. There were complications. People didn't know where to approach, whether they got to go to MHA under Arms Act, or they got to go to the DPIT at that time, DIPP for the IDNR Act, all such confusion was there. At the same time, the entire component ecosystem was subsumed within the licensing system as per the Arms Act and the Arms Rules 2016. So all those issues were resolved, and you came up with a final list which actually tells you that most of the items actually have been kind of delicensed. The entire component ecosystem is completely delicensed. You don't require any license. And where you require license, the entire process was clearly spelled out. Under which act you require was also spelled out. And bulk of it was also delegated from the MHA to the PIT. And after that, under the IDNR Act, whatever was required has also been clearly spelled out. That's one fundamental reform that has helped our businesses. Second thing was with respect to the validity of the licenses. Under the IDNR, they were, I think, 7 years. They were extendable up to 3 years at that time, which has now been revised to 15 years and now extendable up to 18 years. Again, makes things much easy. Whenever I say things easy, does not mean that you don't have you're dealing, after all, you're dealing with things which could be fatal in the end, which are dangerous goods. It's not a chai and coffee business. It's a serious business. So of course you need to abide by the security manual, but the fact remains that while we intend to promote private sector, we are also mindful of the fact that the responsible private sector will ensure that all the provisions that are required for human security, perimeter security, information security when it comes to defense business would be imbibed by the business. And that is why all these provisions have actually been brought in, so that we could free the business from all such restrictions and expect that the business will be doing their work in a manner which allows them to conduct their business operations smoothly. And in fact, all these links are also available online now. So the application for even industrial license is made online. So this entire process actually has been one of our important pillars when it comes to enhancing the ease of doing business. The second part which has come in, you're all aware, is in terms of the foreign direct investment. You all know that now it's almost 100% of the DI could even be 100%. You can bring 100% ownership in terms of the foreign direct investment. 74% is also under automatic route. Again, that makes things very simple. The entire civil aerospace is actually anyway 100% automatic. So you've a lot of synergies there, but still that itself makes things easy and simple. You would have also heard that now a lot of reforms are being envisaged and further improvements are being envisaged in the budget announcements that was made day before yesterday. And you might have heard a word called an independent nodal umbrella body will be set up for meeting wide-ranging testing and certification requirements. I think that will be a very important benefit. While already you have access to the testing infrastructure and the certification infrastructure as per the government order issued, I think this particular line in the announcement made by the Honorable Finance Minister would go a long way in sorting out your testing and certification problems. And certification and testing actually lies at the heart of any D&D effort. And again, under that, you would have noticed that now defense R&D is being opened up for industry, startups and academia with 25% of defense R&D budget earmarked. I think that again opens an entire landscape of opportunities for the private sector to look at in terms of designing and developing platforms and systems for the armed forces. Then there are other things that were required, a defense investor cell, the IP facilitation cell, all these things have also been done. And again, that would help our businesses. Then comes in the whole issue of exports. You're all aware that earlier the entire sector was not being looked at as a sector with economic imperative. Now we look at it as an economic imperative. We've opened up the entire sector. Export or standard operating procedure has actually been completely revamped and revised and made absolutely simple. The import authorization, which used to take a lot of time earlier, has again, that process has been streamlined and all that has been again brought into the fold of DDP. From DGFT, actually we have brought it to ourselves. And now we have an online system for exports, we have an online system for imports, and all these systems have actually helped the industry to a very large extent. I mean, from some paltry 1500 crore, we are looking at some 10,000 crores in just about 3-4 years is again a testimony to that particular point. So enhancing the ease of doing defense business has been one of our important pillars. The simplified make two again help there. And now you have 62 projects which are currently going on in which R&D work is being done in by the industry. And I'm sure all such efforts tell us that if we remove these bottlenecks, these problems that create red tape, problems that create regulatory hurdles for the business, we unshackle the business. I think the opportunities that the business gets to devote their energy on business becomes easier and faster. And I have not included the process simplification which is there for all the startups that work with us. So that I think to a large extent has been responsible for improving the business. And I'm still sure this again a journey not complete ever. I mean, you have to keep looking at. That's why a point being mentioned that there are a few things which we have noticed in our recent conclave that we have done with the exporters on 27th. Again, a lot of suggestions have come in from the industry, and hopefully we'll bring all this again and again. Even in defense exports, we'll try and bring in defense exports reform 2.0, which will again further make things easy and hassle-free for the businesses to prosper. So from my side, nothing else to add to. I'm very happy that you have been able to give us a good platform to echo the points that we wanted to make. And it's a pre-DEF Expo webinar. All of you know that DEF Expo is not going to be there from the 10th, and we're expecting good participation from all of you. All those who have still not taken your spaces, I will encourage you to book your spaces, especially the MSMEs and the startups. It's important that you be there for the event, be there for the exhibitions, make business contacts, create networks, and besides that, it's just a great opportunity for you to talk to the global military leaders who are going to be attending this important event. And I think this would also help you develop supply chain linkages with some of your peers and the global OEMs and the global leaders who are in the business. I think all of us know that the importance of defense as a very important economic and strategic imperative. And I'm absolutely sure that with the concerted effort put in by the industry as well as all of us in the government, we all can aspire to become a global powerhouse when it comes to defense designing and manufacturing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for those excellent remarks. Global powerhouse. I think you actually summed it up very well, and we know the type of efforts that you've been putting in reaching where we are today. And at least I've been a witness to so many of them. And when you talked about your interaction with startups, I must tell the audience here, ladies and gentlemen, you should know that Bots Lab was first identified in IDEX, and they are a beneficiary of IDEX, and thereafter whatever synergy happened and the task, they never imagined that they would do 1,000 drones, and that task was given by the Ministry of Defense. I think that was an excellent initiative which happened from here, and that even identification of such gems in the country goes to the credit of Mr. Jaju and his team, because he leads the IDEX, and even opening up the defense R&D is an initiative that has happened due to persistence efforts. And I think, sir, thank you very much. That's been inspiring as ever. Thank you for that excellent talk to the excellent audience here today. And after these two power-studded talks, we have a third power, and that is the air power. And I think let's not forget it was the 75 aircrafts that actually flooded the Rajpath on that day. And while the tanks were tanks, and the army was on the foot on the ground, we had the entire sky lit up with 75 aircrafts, and that was excellent. And to give us a special address today in view of whatever we have heard till now, the person who's leading the entire Make in India front from the Indian Air Force is none other than Air Marshal Sareen, a very dear friend. We have known him to be proactive, aggressive, and also very industry friendly. Air Marshal PS Sareen, Vishishta Seva Medal, sir, all yours.
Thank you, Kuber, sir. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Associated Chambers for this seminar on the eve of the Defense Expo. Now, from the industry perspective, we have heard a lot about various issues, the challenges which you are facing, and also the measures and the positive response you have given to all the measures taken by the Government of India for the ease of doing business. We also heard the Additional Secretary Defense Production ensuring all of you that yes, the system is agile and alive to all the requirements of the industry. From the defense perspective and from the service headquarters, what is our take? Well, our take is we are here to facilitate the indigenization process, and not only the indigenization, but also the sustenance. We are looking at long-term partnerships as the industry has been looking forward to, because it's not only about acquiring an asset, it's also about sustaining it through its life cycle. So we are looking at TOTs not only in manufacturing, we are looking at TOTs in the ROH process. We are looking at the TOTs facilitating the manufacture of spares in India so that we actually get to self-reliance and Atmanirbharta as what the Prime Minister has been leading up to. Now, towards this, what we are doing is we are trying to standardize the operating procedures and streamlining all the operating procedures at the service headquarters to ensure that we in no way contribute to these large time frames which the industry always talks about of the time taken for fruition of these various projects. So on behalf of not only the Indian Air Force, but also the remaining sister services and the service headquarters, I would like to inform the industry that we are very much alive and sensitized to your issues. Not only are we sensitized, at every forum, we are also sensitizing the ministry, and our requirements, we do ensure that our requirements stay current. We do not like them to become obsolete, and delays lead to obsolescence. So with these few words, I would like to thank the industry for giving me this opportunity. And please do not hesitate to let us know of any other issues other than those which we have noted down today, where we need to sensitize the government and the MOD. Thank you very much.
Hey, Marshal Sareen, sir, I think that was so nice of you. In fact, what you did not highlight is from the Air Force, one of the most interesting things that I see is your website, which is glamorous in terms of the information that you put across in terms of RFIs and RFPs. And I've not seen that happening in the other two services. And despite being from the Army, I would like to have said that they would do it, but I think Air Force does it extremely well. The number of spares, the number of, I mean, I see at least about 10 to 12 on a daily basis coming. And when I see, if I try to compare over a month or 2 months, I think we are talking about 300, 400 crores. And I was trying to guesstimate the value because the values are not given there. And I tried to do this out of sheer interest. And because you're showing so much interest, and I wish there is somebody who's at least reading those and trying to capitalize on it and rush to the Air Force, to the BRDs and say, here is what I've got. Thank you very much for that. And you talked about the ROH, you talked about the spares, you talked about the TOT, you talked about sustaining an asset, not just acquiring an asset. I think all these go a very, very big way. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we are coming towards the culmination of this, I must tell you that there are two IITs which join together and create a formidable force. There is an IIT Powai and there is an IIT Delhi. They took these two together, which is a father and son combination. They come up with a company called SMPP, who also have the largest orders, which they have bagged recently, and they are in the process of establishing a very huge facility in up north, and I think I will leave it to them to tell you that. But I have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. S.C. Kansal, the co-chairman on the ASSOCHAM National Council of Aerospace and Defense and chairman of SMPP, to deliver the vote of thanks. Sir, all yours.
Thank you so much, Colonel Kuwait. Thank you so much. Let me first thank you with a special thanks for maintaining the time schedule, which is a very, very difficult task for any moderator. It's a very difficult task, and you have done it fantastically and very phenomenally. You have done it. Mr. Sanjay Jaju, Additional Secretary, Minister of Defense. Mr. Muhammad Noor Rahman Sheikh, Joint Secretary, Minister of External Affairs. Air Marshal P.S. Sareen. My Chairman, Remy Martin, and Colonel Kubair in special. Yeah. So first, let me thank Mr. Jaju for confirming the DEF Expo to be held. Earlier, people were in dilemma whether it'll be held or not, but now it's confirmed. Thank you so much. Because a lot of people, a lot of industry from defense are very enthusiastic to go to Gujarat, the vibrant Gujarat, for the DEF Expo, including my company, who has taken 200 square meter for doing the DEF Expo over there. We are doing it. And we thank the Ministry of Defense for issuing wonderful ease of doing business, including the budget, which was announced day for yesterday. A lot of parameters are given. They have given a boost to the DRDO for 25% budget to be given to the private manufacturing. It's a big boost for any R&D. R&D is a big strength. I, being from R&D side, from IIT Bombay, I know the importance of the R&D, which DRDO is doing it. DRDO has been doing earlier. Now they'll do furthermore. I got experience of Mr. Dr. Moin, the way these office, what a wholeheartedly help and cooperation they extend whosoever goes to them. They hold the hands and they do it. To achieve the target, I'll say minuscule target of $5 million trillion economy target, 25 billion target for manufacturing the defense, and $5 billion for export by 2025, which is minuscule in comparison to which Noor Mohammed Saab has told 400 billion target for the mercantile. To achieve this target, which I'll give minuscule target, the government has given a lot of things for doing ease of doing business in defense. Be it 210 those positive list items, 550 licenses they are given. Earlier, it was a very, very difficult task. I know how my company has taken the lessons. Earlier, they were struggling hard for about 8 years. We got it within a period of 6 months. We got for the industrial license, which we are putting in Himachal in an area of 800 acres. Then 200 crore tender, which is meant for only Indian companies, not the global trade. They have done it. And others, what all they have done for startups and now that Make in India, which I don't have to repeat. My other friends have already spoken about it. Let me first do my target, which I have been asked to. I first thank Mr. Remy Martin for he lays stress on easing advantages. Then that there should be a level playing business of DPSU between DPSUs and private, so that should go in parallel. This is a wonderful thing they are done, and we should, the government must take care of it. Then I thank Mr. Ashish Saraf, who is giving that for equipment trial, anybody who is in a foreign technology tie-up or TOT technology or joint venture, their OME should be allowed for the testing over there, for testing the products which they can bring it from abroad on NCNC basis. Then I thank Commodore Bhargava, who is a master of offset things. He also stressed a lot of things on offset. I thank Mr. Vaibhav Gupta, who has raised the issue of PLI scheme for defense also. He also has pointed out, it's a wonderful thing, he pointed out there should be nodal agency for doing the MOD single window clearance should be done. Then I thank Mr. Bhanoji Rao for the time schedule trials on the OEM products. In case they allow, the government allows, there should be time fixed over there. I thank Ms. Ashmita Sethi for the foreign global partners for robot business. If in case we have a foreign partnership that leads to the global for robot business, that she's of course right. And then they have to specify about this irrational GST. 5% she says for the capital and 18 to 20% for the spare part, which is a genuine thing. I think the government must take care of it. I thank Commander Ravi Sharan, who has from Ravindra, he is there should be export of platform, not the spares and part. The government must insist give incentives for the export of the platforms. Then, of course, General O'Brien has pointed out the fund should not lapse. They should continue. They should continue in one form or other, or defense should place order, maybe in the form of repeat orders, because for the government or the MOD has to give a repeat order in case any company has infrastructure, they have developed the infrastructure in the huge by spending funds. Then he has pointed out the importance of the DRDO technology. That, of course, I already spoken about it. Then I thank Mr. Ola Regal for his wonderful remarks on DefExpo and other things. Thank you so much for all. Thank you, Kumar. I hope I stick to the time.
So, yeah, thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen. Very, very important announcement. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, "Vyavasayatmika buddhi eko hi kurunandanaha, baushaka hanantascha buddhayo avyavasayanam." So, vyavasayatmika buddhi, a resolute mind goes in only one direction. I think MOD has got a very resolute mind in holding the DefExpo it's going through. And I think that's where we are doing good. I would request you all to stay on for 3 minutes for the play of the video, which is coming from MOD. Over to the IT team for the video. Thank you. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us and going through this video from the MOD. That brings us to the end of this evening's uh, uh, seminar on synergizing the policies and ease of doing business. I think we had a very, very excellent seminar from eminent speakers. And I think it was a very good evening, very good afternoon that we spent together. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pulkit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone. All eminent speakers.